Okay, we are all set. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Jepson. I am the Division Administrator for Plant Health and Compliance with the Department of Agriculture. It is May 31st, 2022, and we're here to talk about an adoption hearing for NAC 552 as it pertains to apiaries. Just for the record, it is 10:31 and we are starting the hearing. So we'll go over a few housekeeping things. I will put up a slide that talks about how we can engage the public, as that's what this whole process is about. We'll start with public comment. So before that, I will make sure to raise that slide that allows you to engage should you be calling in, which I think everybody is joined by video and their names are in the chat, which is perfect. So thank you. So we'll start with public comment, then we will actually go into the specific proposed changes that are being submitted by the Department of Agriculture. For those of you that were in attendance on the February 16th, 2022 workshop, there have been a couple minor adjustments based on the feedback that we got. But again, that draft is something that you guys have likely seen when you received the notice to attend here. It's on our webpage and you will be seeing it during this hearing as well. We do have a couple other department representatives. We have Megan Brown. She's our Deputy Administrator for the Division of Plant Health and Compliance, and Jeff Knight, our State Entomologist. So he's really, he's in the field, busy working on our cricket and grasshopper program. It's very time sensitive. So we appreciate his time and jumping in the car and being available for expert questions. So those are our two representatives from the department. I think I captured those. Bear with me and I will pull up the slides for public engagement should you be calling in on your phone. Otherwise, you will see on the right-hand side of your computer, you can, next to your name, when called upon, you can unmute, you can turn on your camera and flag me should you want to engage during that portion. You will be free to do so. If you are calling in or you have some audio issues, please feel free to use the chat. You can send me an email to make sure that we capture any comments that you may have. We want to hear from you. That's what this whole process is about. Let me screen share here quickly so we can show that slide just in case you need. It's nice to see things written. Bear with me for just a second here. There we go. Okay, so you will see a PowerPoint slide here. Is it showing up, Megan? Okay. So you've all been muted upon entry just to try to make sure that this is a clear recording and to minimize some of the background sound. So during the presentation and when anybody else is testifying, please be sure to keep yourself muted unless you are speaking. Raise your hand. You can flag me down by camera should you like to participate. And again, there's an option at the beginning and the end for public comment. Okay, let me move to this next slide. Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't put it in PowerPoint view. Okay. Now, should you be calling, you can hit *3 to raise your hand. Again, I don't think anybody is, but just for housekeeping, to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute and to mute yourself. So jot those things down fairly quickly because I'm gonna jump and stop sharing our screen here. Okay, sorry about that. So let's see, I just want to make sure that I captured everything in the beginning. As was mentioned, this is an adoption hearing. We already had one workshop and took in feedback on that. We have also gone through a small business impact statement. And that all of the summary for that process where we engage public comment is available on our webpage. We're happy to email that as well. And I'm going to screen share here to give you a visual of the process we've gone through thus far. Okay, sorry for the lag time here. All right. So going into it, as I mentioned, this is our NAC 5. Oh, and I'm sorry, it's an adoption hearing. I will change that, not our workshop. So just, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a flow from where we've at. So the revisions have certainly evolved since you originally would have received our small business impact. So the revisions to NAC 552, Megan, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so we still just see the slide deck. If it's in presentation mode, we just see the first slide and then sort of all the slides down the side.
Okay, I have it. It's showing in presentation mode, but let me unshare and reshare. How's that? Okay, great. Okay, so as I mentioned, these proposed changes have really evolved. I want to be clear in that during our workshop, we provided clarification. There at one point was a proposal to have neighbor notification should somebody want to put in beehives on their property. That has since been removed. That was removed before the workshop. But it was part of what we assessed during the small business impact to try to get feedback from industry on that and assess potential impacts. We will go into what the final draft is now, but I just want to make that clear because there's still been some confusion there. That part has been removed. So if you are going through and looking at that small business impact summary, there's the report that's available online, and there's also the summary. You're going to see a lot of responses on that. And also a few on the signage that we'll go into, but really at this point in time, the only portion we are trying to move forward with is just having signage up where those apiaries are located. We held a public workshop on February 16th of 2021 to solicit more feedback. We did also receive a few emails that we encompassed in that as part of that assessment as well. The Legislative Council Bureau is the official that actually drafts the final version that has to go through the adoption hearing to make sure that we have the authority and everything's in place that would allow for that to move forward and allow us to go to adoption hearing for public engagement. So that's where we're at now. We're at that point, that hearing for intent to adopt, engaging the public on that, seeing if there's any other feedback, and then should everything go forward and there not be any additional changes or substantial changes, it will be moved forward to the Legislative Council for an actual, for an official adoption hearing. That usually happens within 30 days. Should, again, there not be any changes, it's usually a pretty quick process. But for those of you that are kind of new to the process, this kind of paints a big picture of the public process, the assessment, and how these things move forward to adoption. Okay, we kind of went over this. Should you be having any technical difficulties or think of something afterwards, please feel free to email me. My email is in this slide particular, so take a second to jot it down. And I'm, like I mentioned, we want to hear from you. So now we're going to go ahead and engage for public comment, but I'm going to move to this next slide. So as you go into public comment, please raise your hand, flag me down, state your name and affiliation for the record. That is part of the requirement. Please avoid repetition if there's people saying the same thing. We'll capture the comment, but just for everybody's time, and limit yourself to 3 minutes. We'll do that with everybody. Just an FYI, any unused time that you have, you cannot allot to another person. That 3 minute is the cap for each individual person. Okay, and this isn't as big as I would like it, but it does show where we have actually landed. And again, the draft Legislative Council Bureau is, sorry, excuse me, the final draft from Legislative Council Bureau is on our webpage. And here's the actual language that we're moving forward with adoption on. Okay, so as you'll see here, Chapter 552 of NAC is hereby amended by adding thereto a new section to read as follows. The owner of an apiary shall post a sign on the property on which the apiary is located, which must be, and here's all the criteria. So I want to, again, we're going to go through this more, but I want it to be in front of you as we, you to get to look at it again before we engage with public comment. Okay, so take a second, take a look at it, and we'll screen share here in a second, but I can't see everybody raising their hand at this point in time. Should there be anybody at this point? Oh, there we go. Lindsay, go ahead and you are good to speak.
Okay, I've got multiple computers and cameras set up, but my name is Lindsay Chichester. I'm with UNR Extension in Douglas County. I have questions for clarification, and I don't know if that's allowable right now. 2 of them. One is, how do you define conspicuous? My second one would be in the document, Notice of Intent to Act Upon a Regulation for Nevada Administrative Code 552. On page 3, it's mentioned several times that there are fees. Can you talk about what type of fees you envision may be associated with this? That's all I have. Thank you.
So for the record, Ashley Jepson, so I'll answer your question first on conspicuous. You know, we're reasonable with that. We're really just trying to avoid somebody writing something that's, you know, not legible, that we can't see in any way, shape, or form, and kind of skirting the intent of these regulations. So it needs to be big enough that we can see it as we're getting closer. It needs to be clearly written so that we can legibly read it. We're not here to harp on folks on how big it needs to be, what it needs to look at. We know that that's adaptable. We're just trying to set some criteria here. So we're not going to define conspicuous. As long as we can somewhat see it, we can identify where it's at. That's all we're looking for. So fairly simple. We didn't want to box people in that regard by defining conspicuous. As far as your second question, I'm going to stop my screen share. Bear with me for just a second. And you're saying there are fees in the draft that's been issued to the public? I want to make sure I'm following you right. Or as the regulation stands right now.
I think it's written, it's in the 6-page PDF that was on your website. There's informational statements. And then on page 3, it talks about, like one of the bullets, adverse economic effect on the public, the increase in fees for the regulated industry. Again, it talks about, there's like 4 bullet points that have that as the second sentence.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That's super helpful. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of glitch here on getting my screen back up. So what you're looking at is the standard small business impact survey that's issued. Those questions are in are in NAC that require us to assess that with each regulation we propose changes to. That doesn't mean there are actual changes to fees. So that's just general questions that are standard for any agency that's trying to adopt regulation changes. We are not proposing any new fees. The fees that we have are more that are in code and with authority and statute now are fees for response should there be a public safety issue, an a threat to agriculture issue, should we find a pest of significance. We have those existing fees now. We are not proposing any new fees as part of this regulation. We're just trying to get the signage so that we can respond when there's a complaint or we find an abandoned or diseased hive with the owner. But there are not new proposed fees.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Sure. Appreciate the clarification. Okay, at this point, are there any other, are there any other public comments before we pull up that slide again? I'm not seeing any at this point. Okay. Just taking one more gander. I'm not seeing any other folks. Okay, let me pull that slide back up. I apologize. I'm having a few issues with WebEx, but I think we're getting the point across and you can see things for the most part. Okay. All right, we're going back to this slide here. All right, that popped up. Great. So I won't read it. You can see it in front of you. As I mentioned, the intent here is to have signage up at each apiary. It needs to be, as was mentioned, conspicuous. So where we can see it, not a sign that's the size of a business card, right? The whole purpose is for us to be able to find it and respond to the owner of the hive. We have, as was mentioned during the workshop, oftentimes it's not the landowner that has the hive. So this allows us to streamline that notification. In the past, we've had abandoned and highly diseased hives where the recourse action is disposal. And ideally, we want to reach out to the owner, provide education, talk about these issues. And should there be remediation, for lack of a better term, options, we can work with them on what those may be. We have experts. We have Jeff Knight and his team. So that's what that notice is there for. There has been some discussion too of just letting folks that might be doing any treatment in the area, seeing that just provides a broader awareness that there could be some hives should somebody be out there doing things. But really the intent is to allow us to contact the person. It's been very difficult to track down, and it's been impeding our ability to enforce NAC 552 and ultimately protect this industry, which is what we've been commissioned to do. So the criteria is, the text on the sign needs to be easily readable, at least 1 inch in height, and include without limitations a statement indicating the apiary is located on the property, the name of the apiary, and a telephone or email address of the owner of the apiary. So that's one of the big changes that we've seen from the workshop. So we did have a lot of feedback even before the workshop and during that had concerns about listing an address. Really, our ultimate goal is to just, the owner's address or business address. Our ultimate goal is just, how do we get a hold of you? So we did strike that address because if somebody's providing the correct phone number, an update email, that's hitting the mark, and it provides some of that privacy that some folks expressed concerns about. So that was something that we did change. So one of the things we were concerned about is that a sign wouldn't be posted and maintained on that located property. We know things move. And as things are moving, that sign needs to remain with the apiary. should somebody not follow these requirements, the director may, after notice and opportunity for hearing, find the apiary abandoned and have the apiary seized and destroyed. There is authority already that allows for immediate response in the interest of protecting if it's diseased or something along those lines that allow us to react quickly. But again, ideally the owner is going to be the one taking responsibility and mitigating that. And that's been one of the issues we've had, is things popping up and then being abandoned, and that poses a risk to others as well. So that's really the intent. That's the gist of the changes. That's what we're trying to do. And of course, we'll be working with industry throughout this process, doing a lot of outreach on this requirement and making sure everybody's aware. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. If I missed anything, Jeff or Megan, please feel free to chime in at this point, just in case. Okay, pretty quiet. Okay, well, with that, I will end my portion, item 2 on the agenda for the presentation, and open it back up. Should there be any other public comment or questions, this is the opportunity. So I will mute myself, and then please raise your hand or indicate that you would like to speak in some manner, and we'll get you chimed in. It's pretty quiet. Well, as we wait to see if anybody else does want to speak, again, if you're having any technical difficulties, please shoot me an email with your comments or things that you would like any information on. This recording, this adoption hearing recording, will be posted to our website with where the hearing notice was, and also the small business impact summary, that statement. And then also, I believe it actually has the survey results itself. And if anybody's interested in that, we're absolutely happy to share that. That has all the public response that we had. So all that information is available on our webpage. That same link that you would have received upon receiving notice of this this adoption hearing. So if you have any issues finding it, please let me know. We're happy to share that. And we appreciate your time in being here. We know everybody's busy, and there's kind of a lot of formalities to get through. So we appreciate that. Being that it's still pretty quiet, I'm going to take this opportunity to close the intent for adoption hearing. It is 10:54 on May 31st of 2022. And we will be moving forward with intent for adoption, and we will be filing this in an informational statement along with the documents I aforementioned to the Legislative Council to get onto our legislative, to get in for the legislative hearing. So again, that's been usually, typically Legislative Council hearing is within 30 days. So fairly quickly, and that is a public meeting as well. Thanks for bearing with us as we had a little bit of technical difficulties. Appreciate it. Thank you for everybody for being here, for the questions, and I hope you have a wonderful day. With that, we will stop the recording.